Before Goldfinger, gadgets were not really part of Bond's world. Production designer Ken Adam chose the DB5 because it was the latest version of the Aston Martin. In the novel, Bond drove a DB Mark III, which he considered England's most sophisticated car. The company was initially reluctant, but was finally convinced to make a product placement deal. In the script, the car was armed only with a smokescreen, but every crew member began suggesting gadgets to install in it. Hamilton conceived the revolving license plates because he himself had been getting many parking tickets, while his stepson suggested the ejector seat, which he saw on television. A gadget near the lights that would drop sharp nails was replaced with an oil dispenser because the producers thought the original concept could be easily copied by viewers. The opening credit sequence was designed by graphic artist Robert Brownjohn, featuring clips of all James Bond films thus far projected onto Margaret Nolan's body. Its design was inspired by seeing light projecting on people's bodies as they got up and left the cinema. Visually, the film uses many gold motifs, reflecting the novel's treatment of Goldfinger's obsession with the metal. Goldfinger has a yellow painted Rolls Royce with the number plate AU1, AU being the chemical symbol for gold. Also sports yellow or gold items of clothing in every film scene, including a golden pistol. Jill Masterson is famously killed by being painted with gold, which according to Bond causes her to die of skin suffocation, an entirely fictional cause of death, but the iconic scene caused much of the public to accept it as medical fact. An urban legend circulated that the scene was inspired by a Swiss model who accidentally died the same way while preparing for a photo shoot. Goldfinger began the tradition of Bond-themed songs introduced over the opening title sequence, the style of the song from the pop genre and using popular artists. Although the title song sung by Matt Monro in From Russia with Love was introduced in a few phrases on Bond's first appearance, a full rendition of the soundtrack only commenced on the final scene of The Waters of Venice through the following end titles. Shirley Bassey established the opening title tradition, giving her distinguished style to Goldfinger, and would sing the theme songs for 2 future Bond films. The song Goldfinger was composed by John Barry with the lyrics by Anthony Newley and Leslie Brukos. The track features a young Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin fame, who was doing many sessions at the time. The lyrics were described in one contemporary newspaper as puerile, but what remained undisturbed was Shirley Bassey's interpretation of the word impact. Like the score, the arrangement makes heavy use of brass, meeting well with Bassey's signature belting and incorporates the Bond theme from Dr. No. Newly recorded early versions, which were even considered for inclusion in the film. The soundtrack album topped the Billboard 200 chart and reached 14th place on the UK Albums chart. The single for Goldfinger was also successful, reaching 8th in the Billboard Hot 100 and 21st in the UK charts. Goldfinger's script became a template for subsequent Bond films. It was the first of the series showing Bond relying heavily on technology, as well as the first to show a pre-credit sequence with only a tangential link to the main story, in this case allowing Bond to get to Miami after the mission. Also introduced for the first of many appearances is the briefing in Q Branch, allowing the viewer to see the gadgets in development. The subsequent films in the Bond series follow most Goldfinger's basic structure, featuring a henchman with a particular characteristic, a Bond girl who is killed by a villain, big emphasis on gadgets, and more tongue-in-cheek approach, though trying to balance the action and comedy. Goldfinger has been described as perhaps the most highly and consistently praised Bond picture of them all, and after Goldfinger, Bond became a true phenomena. The success of the film led to the emergence of many other works in the espionage genre and the parodies of James Bond films, such as the Beatles film Help in 1965 and the spoof of Ian Fleming's first Bond novel Casino Royale in 1967. Indeed, it has been said that Goldfinger was the cause of the boom in espionage films in the 1960s, so much so that in 1966 moviegoers were offered no less than 22 examples of secret agent entertainment, including several blatant attempts to begin completing a series with James Coburn as Derek Flint in Our Man Flint and Dean Martin as Matt Helm. Even within Bond canon, Goldfinger is acknowledged. The 22nd Bond film, Quantum of Solace, includes a homage to the gold-painted death scene by having a female character dead on a bed nude, covered in crude oil. Outside the Bond films, elements of the Goldfinger such as Oddjob and his use of his hat as a weapon, Bond removing his dry suit to reveal a tuxedo underneath, and the laser scene have been homaged or spoofed in works such as True Lies, The Simpsons, and the Austin Power series. The US television program Mythbusters explored many scenarios in each film, such as the explosive depressurization in the plane at high altitudes and the death of a full-body painting, an injector seat in a car, and using a tuxedo under a dry suit. The success of the film led to Ian Fleming's Bond novels receiving an increase in popularity, and nearly 6 million books were sold in the United Kingdom in 1964, including 960,000 copies of Goldfinger alone. Between the years of 1962 to 1967, a total of 22 million Bond novels were sold. Now, Goldfinger will go down as one of the most iconic James Bond films in the series. I think alone seeing Jill Masterson being covered in gold and dying in the first part of the film is just one of those scenes that will always stand out and is such an iconic moment in cinema history. The film is superbly well put together, it is fast, and it is very entertaining. It can, however, be a little bit over the top and preposterous, but then again it is also very exciting. If From Russia with Love was a very grounded Bond experience, then Goldfinger takes it to a new level. All the devices are sophisticated, and so is this film. In the tradition of self-mockery continues, though at times it maybe somewhat overreaches itself. Connery once again is superb as James Bond, but you almost feel by this film he knew the character so well, he was sort of going through the motions. I must say, I do love the casting here of Gert Fröbe and Harold Sakata as, of course, Goldfinger and Oddjob. They both make for superb villains, and for me, Goldfinger will still go down as one of the most iconic Bond villains in history. The set designs are brilliant, and the direction now from Guy Hamilton is much more based on action film franchising. And you could see here he had a vision of making this a grandiose film spectacle, rather than a layered, nuanced story. This movie works in so many ways, and it's so different from Russia with Love, yet it's still so iconic and one of the most memorable within the whole James Bond series. There's lots of humour, gimmicks, excitement, and amusing yet intense exchanges between Bond and Goldfinger. Thrilling fight sequences to the death between Bond and Oddjob, and of course later Goldfinger, and a fascinating central crime theme. Goldfinger is where James Bond became the James Bond we all know and love. It of course also features one of 007's most famous lines, a martini, shaken, not stirred, and the wide range of gadgets that would become the series' trademark. This film in many ways set the tone for what the series would become, and its iconic status will live long into cinema history. Goldfinger gets a 9 out of 10.